Okay, that was the grain grinder that we ground the grain with was called a Kitchen Mille. It's also called a K-Tec, and you can sometimes find them online. I used to be able to find them for $189, but it is a very nice grain grinder. It's kind of loud, but it grinds the grain very, very well. And this machine that I'm using here, this is called a Bosch, and it has a blender part to it, but that's broken. This thing is so old. And I used to have one like this back when my children were young, and they used to make the bread, and they would even sell their bread as a little project. And somehow I lost it. I don't know what happened. But then I came across this one at a garage sale for $20, and I said, I know what that's all about. So it makes the best bread. Now you can also get a KitchenAid that kneads bread, or you can do it by hand. But my recipe is very simple. It is basically 1 quart of water to 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of yeast, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1/4 cup of honey. And the honey will help the yeast to have food to multiply it. So I'm going to start with the 1 quart of water. And this should make about 3 medium-sized loaves of bread. So that was a quart of water. Here's the lemon juice. The lemon juice helps it to rise better, and I've noticed that it does better when I use lemon juice. Now we're going to do the 1 tablespoon of salt. And 1 tablespoon of yeast. This is that instant yeast that you can get in a vacuum pack that you can usually get it at Costco or Sam's, or it's comes in a big vacuum pack. So there we go with the yeast. And then some honey. 1/4 cup. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on low, and then I'm going to just keep adding the flour until it's pretty stiff, and then I'm going to let it, after it gets to a certain stiffness, I'm going to let it knead for maybe 5 more minutes. Now, I didn't grind enough, so I'm going to go ahead and grind some more wheat and add it to it. Okay, I could have used some flour that I had in the freezer, but I don't want to use it cold, so I had to grind up some more. If you have flour left over, you can put it in the freezer, but you need to warm it up before you use it for your next batch, because it will stop the yeast from growing if it's too cold. We're getting to the point where we want to add it slower because we don't want to over add the flour. If it's too much flour, then it doesn't rise very well. If it's not enough, then it will fall. You can see it's starting to come away from the sides a little bit. Usually it'll pull it from the sides and from the bottom, and it'll be pretty clean. Now that we've gotten to this point, we're going to let it just knead for about 5 more minutes. It's still sticking to the bottom pretty much, so I'm going to add more flour. Okay, now we're getting some cleaning up pretty good on the bottom. And on the sides. I had set the timer for 5 minutes, so just want to check the texture here. It's a little wet. I'll show you that. If it sticks to your fingers a lot, and if it has so much movement, easy to move, it's very gooey. So we're going to add just a little bit more flour, not much, and let it continue to knead. Okay, I'll take this off so you can see a little better, but it has a nice consistency. We're going to let it rise, double, and then we're going to knock it down, and if it looks like it still needs more, I would add flour now, but after you wait and you knead it again, sometimes it takes, the moisture absorbs the flour, and it doesn't seem like it needs water anymore. So we're going to let it rise once, and then we're going to knead it, knock it down and knead it again. Okay, so it has more than doubled, and so I'm going to knock it down and see if it needs some more flour. It actually looks pretty good. It's a little bit wet, but it has a lot has a lot of elasticity to it. So. Put some flour down on the counter here and plop it out. If we need to add more flour, we can add it after we take it out. And look how strong. Look how strong this gluten is. It's very, very good gluten worked up. That's what I like about this Bosch. It seems to be a little wet, so it's sticking to my fingers. I'm going to add a little flour to it. And this way it should look completely clean. Everything is taken by it. Okay, so this bread is completely oil-free, and it really doesn't taste much different leaving the oil out than making oil-free bread for, probably close to 40 years or more. Oil-free everything. Using a lot of nuts and seeds, but not in bread. You don't really need it. This is just perfect. It's not sticky at all. So I'm going to go ahead and divide it. My husband's going to make some pocket bread with some of it, and I'll let you see that process. I have one loaf that should take about 1/3 of this to make for it. You can, if you want, this makes a nice medium-sized 3 loaves. But my husband's going to make pocket bread, and I don't have another pan. I just have a small pan, so I'm going to do a small amount for the small pan, and then he's going to make pocket bread out of the rest of this. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit of flour in the bottom of these pans, keep it from sticking.
What?
The dough is ready. You want to make some pocket bread?
Okay.
Or do you want me? You want? You can make a big round loaf if you want. I don't have any more pans.
This rose, right?
Yes.
Right, so I have to make the balls, sit 10 minutes, roll them out, sit 20 minutes, and then bake them. So how will that work in your...
Oh, well, I can always knock mine down and put them back in the pans. So you can go ahead and do all your baking. So, now,
And mine
repeat that again. What is it that you're going to do?
It has to sit, after I make the balls, has to sit 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And then you roll it out and wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you put it in the oven, at a hot oven,
500.
for 5 minutes. 500 for 5 minutes, and it makes pocket bread.
Yep.
Now I put a little bit of oil on the sides of these pans, so it will rise and slide right along and not stick, hopefully. Let me have just a little bit more for this loaf here. Okay, so we're going to let these rise. Looks like I've got too much in this one. I'll take a little bit out of here. A little bit too big of a... You want them to be about 1/2 to 3/4 filling the pan. and it should rise double at least. And so I'm going to cover these and wait until they're risen about double, and then put them in the oven, 350 for about 40 minutes, and they'll be golden brown on the top. And so everybody's oven's a little different. You might want to leave it a little longer if it's not golden brown on the top, and you might want to look at it. Don't open the oven for the first 15-20 minutes because any draft can make it fall. And so you don't want to over rise this either, because it will rise again a little bit when you put it in the oven. And so almost double, and then put it in the oven. And if you're going to put it in the oven before you preheat it, which you can do that, then you want to make sure that it's not double yet. Okay, so this is my husband's project here. He's making balls, letting them rise for 10 minutes, and then he's going to roll them out with the rolling pin and let them rise 20 minutes. And then after that, he's going to put them, you don't roll them again?
No, roll them out. Just flat. Then they rise 20 minutes. And then bake in an oven at 500 degrees for 5 minutes.
Okay. So we will bring this back. We'll be back after this rises to show you him rolling them out. The balls have risen, and we are now rolling them out, or he is now rolling them out into flat, what do you call these? Where's the other one? And covering them. So he's rolled them all out. We're going to let them rise for 20 minutes. Take a look at the bread. It hasn't risen a whole lot yet. It's going to take some time. So it's been only 15 minutes since we...
Yeah, these will rise 20 minutes.
It's going to be a race to the oven because he's going to need to have the whole oven to bake these. So I got to wait till he's done. So I might have to knock mine down in the pans and let them rise again.
Oh, take one out there.
You only do 2 at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, so for 5 minutes, they're in the oven at 500 to make pocket bread. They have risen for 20 minutes. And we'll see what happens in 5 minutes. Okay, so these are the pocket breads rising. You can barely see it in the oven, but they are definitely rising, and so we will have pockets for sure. It's the first time we used this specific recipe. We weren't sure it was going to work.
Okay.
1 minute.
I put it on 6.
Okay. So we're going to open it up. Take a look. And there they are. Scooped up pockets. They're a lot of work, but they're worth it. put the other 2 trays in, and then we will bake the bread. As you can see, the bread is still rising. They're at double probably now. So we've got to get these other pockets done in 5 minutes, and then we'll put the bread in.
Can you cover the at 350? Yep.
Okay, this is the last of the pocket bread coming out of the oven. And after you bring it out, you need to cover it with a towel, let it cool, and then you can, after a couple hours, you can bag it up and put it in the freezer or refrigerator. The bread is going to go into the oven. Goes nicely. And if you could take that, either that top tray out for me, or move the bottom one down a little bit. Take that top tray and put it on the bottom. And I will just put it right there. You want to be gentle when you put the bread in, because if you knock it, bump it, it's going to fall. And you should not open the oven door for at least 15 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for probably 35 minutes and check it. Okay, the bread should be done. Ooh, it looks good. It didn't fall. And it's nice and brown. Let's hope that it's going to fall out. Pop out easily. All right. Here we go. Fresh bread. Before you eat your bread, to let the yeast dissipate. It can still be live, and it's not the best for your health to eat fresh bread, although it is very tasty. Okay, so what I have to put in my pocket is some homemade sprouts, which I have a video that I just put out with that on there. I have lettuce from my garden, some green onions, and this is avocado and a soy spread that I made, which I'm going to make a video on that sometime soon. And this is just eggplant and peppers from my garden that I'm going to add to this. And that is my sandwich for today.